Hi.
Can you hear me?
Now I can. I'm having a little bit of technical difficulties today.
I'm having technical difficulties too.
Can you hear?
Yeah, I can hear and see you fine.
You are?
Yeah. So I tried
Oh,
my
good.
desktop
Okay.
and the application I have on there to allow my iPad to be used as a camera wasn't working. So I tried uninstalling it, reinstalling it. That didn't work. So then I tried my iPad connecting right to Zoom, and that's when it said that you'd already closed the meeting. So now I'm trying my iPhone, and this looks like it's working.
Okay. Well, I think you're fine.
You're
And
pretty good
I'm just
yourself.
checking to see that we're on Facebook. So hold on there.
Okie dokie.
It should be happening.
All righty.
There, we are actually on. And I'm just going to edit. I have to do a little bit of editing here.
No
How are
problem.
you today?
I just got back from having my teeth cleaned, so I'm relieved to have gotten through that somewhat painful process. And it's still really hot out, so we have all the fans on. Otherwise, I'm good. How about you? I'm looking at you, Cat. See, is this? Let's see. That's the camera. Okay, I get it. So now I see me. I don't see you. Did we get disconnected? We might have gotten disconnected. Hmm.
Okay,
Yeah,
you're
I see you
here.
again. I am. And you're there.
Okay. And hopefully we are still on. I'm I'm thinking we are, but I just have to show you in YouTube and Facebook so that,
Okie dokie.
people will know.
Yeah.
And there, save. Let's assume we're saving. Save.
Yeah.
Saving. Saving. Come on, YouTube. Save. Maybe I'm just wondering if the heat is really messing with the
Oh, that'd
internet
be
a little
interesting.
bit, you know.
Yeah.
Could be, but anyway,
Yeah,
you know this stuff.
The Hollywood Bowl went down last night.
Did it?
Yeah. Power shut down.
Oh my gosh.
I know.
Wow. That's
Hmm.
terrible.
Welcome to the new normal. But Trump, apparently Trump knows that it's a complete hoax and it has nothing to do with us, this climate change stuff. He's amazing. He's a genius.
He is a
Trump.
genius, man. Okay, I think I got it together now. Pretty sure we're cool. So
Okay.
while back from I showed Barbara Morrison on the Jazz Salon.
Oh
Oh,
yeah.
thank you, Will. So we're live in Simi Valley. Thanks, Will.
Oh, excellent.
And let's see, and I showed some of Mary Stallings
Mm,
in the Bay
nice.
concert, you know.
Yeah, yeah, cool. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. So this is my friend Dave Ross. Dave and I knew each other years and years ago when he was a guitar player.
Yeah. I
And
remember that. I remember, I think the first time I met you, I can't, it was at that little situation in like Toluca Lake or Studio City where Kit lived in the back and Tony and Judy lived in the front. Tony Hummocky and Judy and Kit Lane lived in the back. I think you were at Tony and Judy's, and I remember you were so cute and you had this like just wonderful enthusiasm, this like a clear-eyed excitement about music. And I hadn't played, I'd really never played jazz. I'd played kind of rock and roll in high school. And so you were already way beyond me. But but I can still just remember the impression that you left with me. And then we reunited when Plas Johnson asked me to help him organize a kind of memorial jam for his deceased brother. And there were, I'm guessing, there were quite a few singers. So let's say 6 to 10 singers. And I was just starting to figure and kind of strategize how I was going to start playing live jazz at the LA Athletic Club. So I listened to all these really good singers, but you stood out as being kind of the kind of singer that really appealed to me. That is not a singer who acts like a singer, but a singer who's a musician who just uses her voice as an instrument. And I just thought, and I remembered you, and so I reached out, and you and I think Lou Matthews became the kind of core group that allowed that whole gig to start happening, and it's still going. That was probably, when do you think that was? Like 2012 or something?
let's see. Yeah, could have been 2012. So like 12 years ago, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, because it was quite a ways before the pandemic.
Hell yes.
Yeah.
And
Um,
um, and we're still playing the gig. It's moved from
yeah.
Thursdays to Sundays, but it's
Yeah,
still
it's
going.
amazing. Hey, I
Yeah,
have to do a
grateful.
little off comment
Yeah.
that we're doing a memorial to Lou Matthews today
Oh my gosh, I had
at
no idea.
Jack's.
I knew he died, but so Jack's down Newport Beach.
Yeah,
What
from
time is it?
well, I mean they said 6 to 9, but they said to be there at 6, so I'm
Hmm.
wondering if it's really 7 to 9, the music.
Yeah.
I'm gonna sing a few songs, and
Yeah.
yeah, Lou, man, he was just
Boy,
a
he
quality
was
guy, wasn't he?
he was an angel on this earth. Here I was, a new bass player who played more bad notes than good notes. And here I was playing with somebody I had seen years before perform with Nancy Wilson, who was my favorite singer, and I'm getting to play with him. And every clunker I'd hit, I'd look over at him and he'd just be smiling at me. He never exhibited anything but kind of happiness and pleasure with the music and a desire to make, the best of whatever was happening. He was an absolute doll.
Yeah, he was a quality guy and a really quality player. I mean, of course,
Yeah,
playing with Nancy Wilson says it all, but like in my growing up and playing with so many different pianists, there's a
yeah,
lot of great piano players, especially here in
right.
LA, but there were there were a handful of players who really got what accompanying was.
Yeah,
It was like this.
yeah,
Most players are like this. They're good, they're
right,
supportive,
right.
and but like Tom Garvin was another guy and Lou
Mm,
Matthews, there was something else that they were doing that
yeah, yeah,
was an art form, It was
yeah.
really beautiful. He
Lou
was,
had perfect pitch.
mm,
He started out playing trumpet,
oh,
and he was playing trumpet, I think, in the army, and he just made this arbitrary decision that he'd probably get more gigs if he played piano.
probably
Um,
right.
yeah, I hate that. I mean, why can't they just do one thing like the rest of us? Anyway, yeah, he was a doll, and I was reminded of him the other night. Shalia, you know that singer? She goes
Uh,
kind of by one name, like Madonna.
no.
Shalia. So Shalia, I was put in touch with years ago by um, Hal David's wife at the time, now widow, uh, because Hal and Eunice really liked her singing, and we were doing a tribute to Hal. So I reached out to her, and she and I wanted to do a gig with her, and she was reluctant, and mostly because I think she was a little more on the pop side and wasn't completely comfortable with the idea of no rehearsal and just kind of diving in. But um, I used as my kind of bargaining chip. What about if you got a chance to sing with Nancy Wilson's piano player? And she was like, okay, I'm in. So she came down and did a beach concert, and she's got a huge, wonderful voice. And Matt and Lou was like, just, you know,
You dug.
always his dreamy self. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Nice man, really nice man.
yeah,
Yeah, it should be
yeah.
a nice event today. I'm looking
Is
forward to
it
it.
is it going to be streamed, or
I don't know. I really don't know. They're normally closed on Mondays,
oh,
so I don't
I'll go
really
ahead
know.
and do some investigating. Is it a jam or what's the
No,
formatting?
it's
Or
mapped out.
okay,
Yeah,
okie doke.
yeah.
Well, I don't think I
But
can make it, but I'm going to at least find out about it.
yeah. Well, back to you.
Yeah.
So yeah, yeah, you had started that without me, I believe. I think you had a little music without me, but I came
Yeah.
shortly after that and
Right.
sang pretty much for like 2 years, 2.5 years.
Yeah.
And I have to say, I know you disagree with me, but I loved that spot in the room.
Oh, yeah.
It just felt the sound actually was really good in that
Yeah.
spot, and it felt real open. But as far as the audience went, it wasn't as much of a presentation as it is now.
Right.
It's
Right.
definitely better.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, that was really fun. We had a good
Hmm.
time. I have a lot of pictures
Oh,
actually,
yeah.
and
I know we
and
did.
yeah, it was really cool.
Yeah.
So you're a member there, and
Hmm.
you convinced them
Hmm.
basically to have jazz, right?
Yeah. So I've been a member there since '86, and
Oh,
I actually, a family owned it for 75 plus years. I think four generations of
wow.
family. And I had gone to elementary school with the family member who was the CEO of the holding company.
Of
So
course
I
you
met
did.
her. I met her in the
You
in
have you have those kind of connections, man. You guys
the
don't know, but Dave has those kind of connections. I'm not totally surprised at that. Okay, he went to, what did you say?
so I can
Junior
remember,
elementary?
um, yeah, competing in the third grade with Karen um, Hathaway and her sister Debbie in the Halloween costume competition. Third grade at Egremont School out in Encino. and they beat me. I was an abominable snowman, and they were hobos, I think. And so anyway, so I felt a friendship with the management of the club, which was nice. And they redecorated that room and spent a lot of money and gave me a tour of it. And at that point, downtown, not many people lived downtown. And people used the athletic club before work or after work and then went home. Nobody had dinner there, as an example.
Yeah.
So it just seemed weird to me that they would spend so much money on a room that wasn't going to be used very much. So I suggested, what about if we had jazz there? And they were so uninterested in that proposition that even after I badgered and badgered them, the most I could get them to let me do is to play jazz in the adjoining lobby, which was just this big empty room. And I played there for about 6 months to nobody with a trio or something. And finally, they accepted that it wasn't, that the music was of a quality that would fit in the restaurant. And so they finally let us in the restaurant, but only in that little corner by the bar. And we would roll that old Kanabi
Yeah.
grand in and play. And the family, the Hathaways, who were just wonderful people and such loyal stewards of the club, they're kind of introverted. They're not really social animals. And so they weren't interested in music particularly. And so they just let me run the show. And then we put in a sound system, we put in lights, we moved the bandstand, as you mentioned. And now we're there every Sunday night from 6 to 8:30, and it's tons of fun. I had Matt Politano on keys last night. He's such a doll. And then Ricky Woodard on sax, and a relatively young singer, Natalie Hannah Mendoza, who's a Long Beach native, singing. And boy, she's a remarkable singer, a huge range. She sings a little bit more on the stylistic jazz, like I don't know, she might sing um, when she sings Honeysuckle Rose, it's it's not that it's kitschy, but it's really in that two feel, like dee dee doo dee doo doo dee dee doo dee doo doo, that kind of thing. And so I'm encouraging her to kind of expand her stylistic range into more adventurous jazz, Darn That Dream, something that's not so diatonic and kind of contained. And she's a wonderful person. And so it was fun. Yeah, we filled the room. In fact, I'll tell you a funny story. Um, there's a woman, when he did that Mary Stallings gig at the Ebell Theater with Houston Person, um, I met this wonderful woman, Janine Frank, who has booked a comedy since the days of Mort Saul and, um, oh God, who are those old guys? Can't remember at the moment.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then continued to. And she loves music as well. So she did a lot of musical comedy. So she
Yeah.
did, who's that guy who wrote like Peel Me a Grape and
Bob
uh,
Duro.
Bob Duro, and who wrote My Attorney Bernie?
Bob Duro. Oh, Dave Frischberg.
Yeah, Dave Frischberg. So she booked Dave for years.
Yeah.
So anyway, the last night she brings in a five top people, and she introduces this one woman. Oh, this is Eddie Cantor's granddaughter. And I went, oh
Oh.
my God. And I looked at her then, really for the first time. She looks just like Eddie Cantor. I mean, she's a very pretty woman, but she's got kind of that round face, huge eyes, and a big, smile. And I started giggling, because I felt I was looking at kind of Eddie Cantor. And she's
That's
a singer.
cool.
Oh, yeah, I haven't heard her
Oh,
sing. I
she's a
know.
singer. Well,
Yeah.
it's funny that you bring that up because last week I went to visit Lee Newman, who is the great grandchild of Eddie Cantor. And his grandfather was Jimmy McHugh.
Wait, 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 wait. You met the great grandchild of Eddie Cantor,
Yes.
and So I wonder, so the woman that I met last night, I've got her card, is Amanda Gary. That's
Okay.
who I met
Well,
last night.
okay, so let me
I
just
wonder
think
if this is
about
her
this for a
kid.
second. So
Yeah,
Lee's grandfather was Jimmy McHugh. I think because the last name is different than his name, right? His is Newman.
yeah,
So I think
yeah.
his mother was Jimmy McHugh's daughter. And then it's
But
probably since Eddie Cantor, I mean, I don't know if these names were
right.
legal names or whatever, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it looks like Jimmy McHugh's wife was Eddie Cantor's daughter, right? Because the
Oh,
different
yeah,
name. But let
yeah,
me tell you this story. I'm going to
yeah.
actually interview Lee in a few months,
Oh,
but
cool.
really nice guy. And God, we talked about so many things. One thing though, there was this acrosonic piano, an old, kind of beautiful
Yeah,
old piano. So the
sure.
story he said was Jimmy McHugh, he was a composer, and then when the gosh, what's the English word for that? No, when the stock market crashed,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Depression and all
Yeah,
that stuff.
he
Yeah.
lost everything, and he was
Jimmy McHugh did?
Jimmy McHugh, and he was
Wow.
walking along Riverside Drive, just like walking,
Yeah.
just out of it.
Yeah, but let me ask you, which side of the street was he on?
The sunny
Because that's
side.
really important.
Because he bumped
Yeah.
into George Gershwin.
Oh my God.
And George said, "How you
Ah,
doing?" And he said, "Not good. I have a quarter in my
right.
pocket."
Yeah.
So George said, "Well, that's, I want to do something for you. What can I do?" And he
Yeah.
said, "Well, you can give me a piano."
Ah,
And so he went to where George had this piano, and he
yeah.
sat down and he wrote "I'm in the Mood for Love."
Oh my God.
And then that
Ah,
was his piano from those days, and it's in Lee's office. And it
oh
still
my
sounds
God.
pretty darn good.
Oh
Actually,
my God. What
just
a
a
legacy.
fun. I know. I'll just show you a quick little picture because it's just fun.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Lee, there's more cool information about Lee, but hold on one second. I just want to show you this fun picture because, hey, yep, here I am. So,
Jimmy McHugh wrote great songs,
totally
really
great.
hip
And
songs.
they're very popular. And also, what do you call? Here we go. There it is.
Oh my gosh. So it's an upright with a tall upright acrosonic, huh?
Sounds great. And he said he's never tuned it. And that chair, the chair is the same chair that
Oh
came
my
with
God.
it.
So your buns were on the same buns as George Gershwin and Jimmy McHugh.
Exactly. Exactly.
Wow.
And
Pretty cool.
that's pretty cool, right?
Oh, it's great.
Um, and then there was something else that I was going to tell you. Let's see. Jimmy McHugh.
And I've got to write this down. So
Oh,
his name, what's his name
yeah,
again? Because
his name is Lee Newman.
okay. So I'll
He's
ask Amanda
not
about
very
him.
old.
Yeah.
I think he's I think he's younger than us. And see, ladies and gentlemen, when you get this age, you don't even feel like you're old anymore. But not
Oh,
only that, he's really good friends with Nilsson. He was great
oh,
friends with Nilsson, and he
wow.
even played Obi in the stage production of The Point. Do you remember that, The Point?
No, I don't.
The point. I don't know if any of you out there remember The Point. Nilsson wrote this story and music. It became a movie. It was a record, a show, and it was cartoon in the movie. And it was about this guy, Obi, he had a round head, but he wore
Yeah,
a pointed cap because everybody else in his community had a pointed head. And it was a great story. It was full of,
yeah,
lessons, but the
yeah.
music,
Hmm.
I bet you've heard the music because actually there was a car commercial that used to use "Me and My Arrow." Ba-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da,
Hmm.
today, do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, it was actually it was something for me that kind of changed my life. I never forgot
Wow.
it. The story was
Hmm.
great. The music was beautiful.
Hmm.
Nilsson, but I didn't realize how many things that we
Yeah.
know that Nilsson wrote. And he was a great singer, but
Yeah.
Lee said he was a quiet person. He wasn't like a super performer. He was too shy for that. So that's
Right. Right.
perhaps why he didn't become as big as other people, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Really
Yeah. He was.
interesting.
Yeah. His. When I think of like the Midnight Cowboy stuff, I
Yeah,
mean, the songs that I associate with him are so haunting and original in conception.
yeah,
Uh, yeah, it's amazing. So
yeah.
this kid he's not a kid, but um, what's
He
his
played
name?
Obie in The Point on stage. So
Oh, wow.
he played the main character. He's got a great voice. He you might have even bumped into him years and years ago because he was a singer-songwriter in LA. He grew up in LA, you
Yeah,
know. I
wow.
think
Is
he
he
went to
related?
Hollywood.
Is he related to the famous Newmans? Randy and
I didn't get to that, so I don't know.
yeah,
But he did go to Hollywood High.
yeah.
So, yeah.
And you think he's our age roughly? In his
Roughly
70s?
our age, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Huh. Because I was in a band at Hollywood High in 1966, 67. So yeah, we gotta get down with Lee here for
Yeah.
sure.
So Tony Guerrero, who's trumpet player,
Hmm.
he's actually I think he's the one arranging the Lou Matthews thing.
Oh, yeah.
He said he was just at the Hilbert Museum in Orange, and in the art gallery was a beautiful painting with
Oh,
Barbara
don't tell me.
Wilson and you. Have
Yeah,
you seen
that's right. I'm immortal. Yeah.
that? Have you
Yeah.
seen that?
What happened was, I've got an old friend. Let's see. Yeah, that's it. So I've got an old friend, Peter Adams, who I went to junior high and high school with. And he, who was, I thought of as like this really popular, good-looking kid in school. I wasn't aware that he had an interest in art, but he's spent his entire adult career as a fine artist. And in addition to that, he and his wife Elaine have kind of run what's called the California Art Club, which I think started in the first decade of the 20th century. And so, and now it's filled with fine artists, not just painters, but sculptors and all kinds of great stuff. And they're very active, the membership. And so I think it was before COVID, um, I suggested that we get them to come down to the LA Athletic Club, spend a week, a whole bunch of the artists from the club, and we'd give them a room to put their supplies there, and then every day they would meet downtown and take their easels and stuff. They do plein air work, and they would go out to downtown and paint whatever they saw. And then on Thursday night, they would all come to the jazz salon and paint us. And so they did that, but they basically sketched. They didn't really paint, they just sketched us. And then Peter, during COVID, went ahead and finished the painting and then had that frame made. And it's kind of I don't know what the right word is. Maybe it's ironic, but so you got me on the left and Barbara, Mark Massey on piano, and usually Ricky Woodard would be the
Yeah.
sax player with Nolan on trumpet. But I think that's Danny Janklow that night playing
Yeah, it
alto.
looks like it. Uh-huh.
Yeah,
This
yeah.
beautiful painting. Look at that.
And the painting in the painting is the same painting. You see that?
Oh
Painting
yeah.
that kind of cool.
This is beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very
So
nice.
it's on
Thanks,
exhibition
Tony.
now and it's for sale.
Oh,
And
really?
I'm hoping that it doesn't get sold, so it'll come back on loan to be at the club. So we'll have it back in the salon.
Oh,
That'd be
that's
good.
nice.
Yeah.
Really cool. Very nice.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
God, it's
So
so nice to see you, Kath, and talk to you. I
I
miss you.
know it's great.
Yeah.
It's great. Yeah. Dave has also, you know, I would say because we're on the same page as far as the glass half full, um, he's referred me to several jazz series people, and one being Olak, which I booked for 2.5 years um, before the pandemic. That was a really cool gig. And
Yeah.
yeah, um, um, yeah, so that was
And then
really
that gig out in is it Studio City? What's the one that you worked on all last year?
oh yeah, right, I forgot. Kulaks.
Yeah, Kulaks. Yeah, Kulaks.
Yeah, so Dave actually suggested to Paul Kulak that he contact
Yeah,
me.
yeah,
Those of you listening who know me, know that I helped him last year with booking a lot of jazz people. Um, and yeah, Kulak's is an interesting place. It's cool, you know.
yeah. But it lacks. It's cool, but it lacks.
Wow. That's kind
Yeah,
of like that's kind of like Olak with Bar Fedora. Bar Fedora. Yeah, people always used to say that.
that
It's like
was good.
they said,
Hey,
"Oh, really? A name like that? Couldn't they
I
think of
know, I
anything
know.
else?"
And for those watching, uh, to Kathy's comment about the two of us saying the glass half full, um, another way of saying it, I had a nun friend for a long time till she died, Sister Noreen, and we worked together. And she said to me, "You know what your problem is? You're too optimistic." Yeah, and that's what it is, right? Because same with you. It's like, well, if you can imagine it, then there's a way to make it happen.
Yeah. I mean, in point, look what you did. Look what you've done. Especially, it comes to mind with the sound and the cameras. Like in the part of the series that you've had bigger
Yeah,
names. In
yeah,
the back room, and I mean, wow. There would be a
yeah,
lot of people who would say, "Oh, I can't do that. There's no way I
yeah,
can do that." But you didn't. You're like, "No, I'm going to ask blah blah blah, and yep, and yeah, and I'll just
yeah.
work it out." And you did, man.
I did, and I'm kind of excited and proud of it. The live streaming because it started out. It was during COVID, and I had Barbara came down to the club one night, and those are the days in COVID when you couldn't be in the same room, and the club was shut down basically. And you did one of these gigs too with that organ player. But anyway, we had Barbara come down, and I had I think three cameramen, and I had talked a streaming platform, into providing me the equipment in exchange for what we
Oh yeah,
hoped would be the exposure, for
yeah,
them for their equipment.
yes,
And I looked at the whole deal, the idea, that you have to pay these cameramen,
yeah.
and you've got the equipment cost, and then it's a live streaming is a fairly unstable platform, and so you've got to deal with technical issues all the time. I thought this is really too challenging, just not working well. So somebody told me that during COVID, the security cameras that you'd see it like at a liquor store,
Yeah.
um, which were relatively low quality, but could be controlled remotely, that those companies had started to manufacture high-end commercial quality cameras that could also be remotely controlled. So now, and they're called PTZ cameras because they pan,
Oh,
tilt, and zoom.
oh,
And so now I have an entire three camera live streaming system in a 3 foot square rolling crate. We roll the crate in, we take the cameras out, and all of the electronics are in the crate all connected. We pull the drawer out and we just plug it in, give it Ethernet, connect the cameras, and we're ready to go.
Well, I have to tell you, this noontime hang. I don't know if you remember, but I started it the day the pandemic started,
I
right?
do remember. Yeah.
You remember I had my iPad
Yeah.
on music stand, and
Yeah.
I was using my iPad for
Yeah. I
the
do.
artist that I was interviewing, and I did that for a few months, and then my friend from Germany said, here's what you could do, and so
Yeah.
I moved into that. But yeah, I mean, I'm amazed at what you did. It's like really, it's fantastic. I mean, yeah,
Well,
technology moved along, but still, you made it happen
well,
because
you're,
the glass
yeah.
is half full.
Yeah. You're sweet, Kath. Yeah. We're that way. We just have that disposition, I think, and a lot of people do. But without it, it just, if you are more, for somebody who's more realistic uh, and less idealistic, it would just, there would just be too many obstacles. You know, you do the calculation, you say, well, this isn't worth it. But for those of us who are less inclined to do that accounting ahead of time, we just jump in and, and just kind of keep pushing in the direction that we think we're supposed to go. And eventually we get there one way or the other, most of the time.
Remember that little play? Well, little, it was the bottom floor of the building downtown, and we had a gig there for a while.
Yeah,
Mike
yeah,
Massey was the piano player, I remember.
yeah. And Nick Nolan and Ricky were on it, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
That was
Yeah,
fun.
yeah, yeah, yeah. You know, I've been thinking about this stuff as I age. So everybody, I, I say that when there might just be two or three people there, I know, but I mean, everybody, when Cathy says that we're similar in the glasses half full, we have differences in that broad category as well. And one is that I am, I don't want to say obsessed, but I rarely does a day go by when I don't think about how old I'm getting and that death is coming, you know. And Cathy has a much better attitude about all of that. But because of my attitude, where I reflect maybe more than is healthy about what's coming, I've been thinking about music because not everybody responds to music, but people that do, who love music, regardless of the genre, you've got these moments in your life of real joy, even if it's just listening to a record. But if it's music that that really moves you, it's a sublime experience. And I was thinking the other day, you know, are there really experiences in life that are more sublime than that? I mean, I is listening to music um, on a lower level than somehow important, exciting, great things that are supposed to happen in our lives? And I'm thinking, no, I really think that um, if if on your deathbed you look back and you were able to kind of take a needle and thread together all the moments of joy that you've experienced with music, you would have a glass that was a life that was overflowing with joy. So I'm trying to not take for granted um, the moments that I get to make music. And then that doesn't even include the people that you get to make music with. You know, it's kind of I really can't think of another situation where you could be at a gig with people that you've never played before, and maybe with people with whom you've never met, people you've never met before. And there could be somebody there that's 20 and somebody that's 80 in the band. And you're all going to kind of let your eyes unfocus, like when you look at those 3D photos, and you're just going to kind of believe that this moment is possible where you can together create not just the music, like the entertainment part of the music, but that you can have a moment in that gig when all of you feel like you're all kind of in the same instrument without any conversation about it. And so anyway, so the music itself for non-musicians, and then for musicians, added to the music, these experiences of playing together. I just don't know of any experiences in my life that have been more rewarding than that. But maybe I've had a crappy life. I mean, that's possible.
Well, no, I mean, of course, there are moments that people love. I mean, I'm sure having children, I've never actually had children, but I have some
Sure,
grandchildren through my husband. But,
sure.
there are moments that are
Yeah,
delicious. And
yeah,
then, and then, um, I mean, there's moments in nature, right, that
yeah, yeah,
are
yeah, 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 yeah. I'm
delicious.
not saying that
You're,
music is a sole source of this.
yeah,
All I'm getting at is that I'm not used to thinking of music as as being really special. Uh,
you're not used to it. I thought you
well, I'm
are.
not used to thinking of it that way
Really?
because because um, you know, there's all the preparation, all the practice, get to the gig, your nervousness, the gig that goes well, great. Gigs that don't go well, they're hard. So I mean, it's it's just like all the other parts of my life. It's kind of filled with pluses and minuses.
Yeah.
But now when I isolate it out and I just think about, like you mentioned, having a child, let's say holding the child in your arms the first time, or just loving your partner, the love that
Yeah.
you feel for your partner, and
Yeah.
how beautiful that is, and being loved back. So life has life, fortunately, has uh, a relative abundance of beautiful moments. All I'm getting at is, for some reason, I had allowed music to uh, exist on kind of, say, a lower level, at least in terms of how I framed it. I took it for granted. I
Sorry.
love doing it, but I didn't think of those moments as, yeah, well, that feeling you have when you're really loving it, how does that compare to the other things that you love? Walking in nature, loving your partner. Well, it stands pretty good. It like feels pretty good. So I'm just thinking, my point is that the moments in life that are worthy of kind of cherishing are often very moments that are commonly thought of as small moments, in addition to the big moments of having the child and all that stuff. Small moments like I was getting my teeth cleaned this morning, and on the Muzak came on "I Feel Fine" by the Beatles. It was like boop ba ba doo ba 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 doo ba doo, and I remembered hearing them at the Hollywood Bowl in like 1964, and that was the song they opened with. And all of a sudden, I was like 14 years old, listening, watching George Harrison and John play that lick, and then wiggling their hair and everything. I was like, oh my God, it was amazing. I love that song. So I just, my comment really is just about a reminder to myself not to allow those moments to evaporate, but to kind of keep them, hug them, and really cherish them. And when the moments when you're playing with other people and it really is special, to make sure you let them know that how much you appreciate them. Because so much of what we do, as I mentioned before, is the mechanics of it. Uh, and you have to like get all the mechanics right before you're even allowed to start playing. I mean, you have to remember, you have to tune, you have to have practiced, you've got to be in a good frame of mind, you got to get the equipment, you got to set it up, the mic, you got to get the levels, all that kind of stuff. And then you get to try to let go of all of that and start playing, yeah. So just to say that to not let the magic get lost in all the mechanics that you have to, you know, deal
Yeah,
with.
well, that's a big subject because,
Yeah.
and by the way, Pierre Chambers says hi.
Oh,
And
hi, Pierre.
also Leslie Zerla. Hi, Les.
Oh, Leslie. Oh, I adore Leslie. She was I think a, she was the first girl pitcher in the New Jersey Little League system. Yeah, Leslie Zerla, who
All
used to
right,
work
Leslie.
hand in glove with
I
Ruth to make the jazz
know, that's
bakery.
cool.
She's one of the pioneers of the jazz bakery.
Wow. Um, but getting back to your subject,
Yeah,
I mean, I just gave a kind of a bit of a master class at LA College of Music this week.
yeah. Wow.
And I was actually just watching it because it was on YouTube. And so Dave wanted me to, Dave, David, hello.
The other
What's the
David.
English word for his last name? David, David Joyce.
Yeah,
David
well
Joyce,
done.
he's the head of the vocal department there. And so
Oh yeah.
he wanted me to speak on a few particular things, relating to the struggles that he knew the students were having.
Mm,
And, I mean, at that age, you, it's a great age, 18 through 21. It's a great age because you're
yeah,
searching, you're experiencing, um, but also, it's a bit of a difficult personal age too, right?
yeah, for sure.
So, I was talking about it there, and I mean, to
Yeah,
me, the like what you're talking about, I was listening while you were talking about that
yeah.
and thinking of my own point of view. I mean, well, first of all, the reason why I keep performing is to
Hmm.
have those moments.
Totally.
I
Yeah,
mean, that's the main reason. I mean, the
yeah.
fact that I could bring joy to people, of course, that's part of my purpose.
Sure,
But
sure.
for me, the first initial like push of why I do it is because I want to have that experience with those
Yeah,
people.
yeah,
So delicious and
yeah,
heavenly and connected. I mean, a while back I realized, oh, yeah, singing jazz is my religion because it's
yeah,
something I
yeah,
practice and it brings me closer to God.
yeah, yeah,
Whatever you want
yeah,
to think of God as. But
yeah.
yeah, and that universe that you were talking about too, that's something
Hmm.
I talk about in teaching. I call it
Hmm.
the creative universe. And
Hmm.
so there are a few tools that you use to get into that universe. One
Yeah,
is being aware of the musicians. For
yeah.
singers, sometimes that is lacking, because they're
Yes.
out front, they want to be me, 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 or whatever. So you
Yeah.
have to really be part of the musical band,
Hmm.
and now you're in this universe that you've
Hmm.
all created, that no matter what happens, you can make a mistake, but
Hmm.
everybody's in there, so they're working with it, you
Yeah.
know. And as soon as you think, oh, that sucked, you're out of the universe. So
Yeah.
it's a question of focus and commitment to stay
Yeah.
in that universe.
Yeah.
And I really think, you know, that's the job. You
Hmm.
really gotta remain there. And
Yeah.
I've been listening a lot lately to people like Eckhart Tolle and
Hmm.
Muji, who is a beautiful guy. And, they're talking about just existing in the moment,
Hmm. Right.
and that you can never lose yourself. There's,
Hmm.
there's no way you can lose yourself, no matter
Hmm.
what your emotions are telling you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that reminds me of that too. It's like when you're in
Yeah.
that creative universe, that's you, you
I
know?
can tell you my personal experience. It's because last night I played that gig. I was really excited, looking forward to it, and I had a difficult time the entire night. And what happens to me when I'm having a difficult time is my awareness really shrinks down, like I'm looking at the gig through a telescope or something, or backwards, you know. Um, I I get hyper focused on kind of the aspect of the music that I'm most worried I'm going to not screw up, but I don't know. I get myopic, you know, I just get so sure. It's so much so that I don't even see the other musicians. I just see them out of the corners of my eye. I'm not able to listen very well to the whole thing. I'm just listening to like little pieces that uh, I'm relying on as cues to keep me going. And and at the break, I kind of, you know, once the music stops, now it's a break, I can step back. All of a sudden, I'm present again, and I'm relaxed a little bit. And so I was thinking, like, what's going on, Dave? Why are you so uptight? And I think, but I'm not really sure. I think last night it was because the heat. I think I was really tired. I haven't slept well all week, like a lot of people, all that kind of stuff. And I didn't think of myself as being tired when I was got to the gig, but that's kind of the experience I had. Like I was having to summon all my energy just to stay focused, follow the changes. And so when I'm feeling confident, and well, let's say when I'm feeling confident, the music kind of plays itself so
Yeah.
that I'm able to kind of step back. I see all the musicians. I can even smile at them, and communicate a lot uh, better at that like verbal or like looking eyeball to eyeball level. And when I lose my confidence, that disappears. It just evaporates, and I'm back to like this. Um, it's interesting. And Matt Palatano was so sweet last night on the break. I I described my predicament, and he's just, Dave, don't worry. You know, and I've gotten this from Lou Matthews. I've gotten it from Mary Stallings. You know, whenever I'm having difficulty and I go to them, their response is so consistent. It's basically, Dave, you don't have to worry. Your job here is to have fun. Nobody's judging you. Just relax and have fun. And big smiles on their faces so I know they're being genuine with me, you know. I remember um, Nick Mancini, the first gig I got to play with Nick Mancini. I was so excited to play with a vibraphone player because I loved the Gary Burton Quartet back in the late 1960s with Duster and all these great albums. And so I was really excited. And I was so excited that I reached out. I'd heard that Larry Coryell, who was in the Gary Burton Quartet, that his son, Julian, lived in LA. So I searched out Julian, and he got it on the gig. And I thought, oh my God, it's going to be the Gary Burton Quartet, and I'm going to be Steve Swallow, you know, and we're going to play all these songs. And it was so naive of me because you can imagine all of that, but at the gig, it's one note at a time, and it's a very complex activity playing jazz in a collaborative place, right? You've got all this cognitive stuff that's stored away. You've got all this practicing, all this muscle memory that you're drawing on, and you've got all this knowledge of, you know, what are the changes of the song? What are the how to reharmonize? What might be reharmonized? How do you listen for that? And then you've got kind of the protocol of jazz, like, well, gee, are we going to come back into the bridge, or what's going to? So you've got all of this stuff, and when the first note gets hit, you have to somehow find a way to let go of all that, so you can be present and respond to what's happening, you know. And
Okay.
so
Oh, well,
I was
sorry.
going to say, I
Finish
was
your
having
story.
another bad night. So
Yeah.
on the bridge, I went to Julian and I went to Nick, and they said the exact same thing to me. Nick said, I can remember, this was, you know, at least 10 years ago. Nick said to me, Dave, I know when you're practicing, you're dealing with all of this stuff, but you're not practicing here. This is different. This is playing. So practice is over, and that inner voice you have that is criticizing everything that you're doing is doing you no favors. That's your practice voice. Let go of that voice. Look at us while you're playing and just have fun. That was such an important lesson for me. Of course, I haven't really learned it, but it was like the first time that lesson was presented to me. That was Nick Mancini and Julian.
Well, I would like to suggest that you read Kenny Werner's second book called Being the Instrument.
Okay.
And you probably looked at Effortless Mastery when it came out, right? Years ago?
No,
Oh, well, that's a great book too. I mean, that book
yeah.
was so great that Berkeley made an effortless mastery department 10 years ago,
Wow.
and Kenny Werner runs it, and you can
Oh
get a
my God.
degree in it.
Oh
So,
my God.
so that was his
Yeah.
first book. Then his second book he came out with like a year or two ago called Being the Instrument. And literally, I was just reading last night
Yeah.
about the right and the left brain and
Yeah.
how the left brain is all the stuff you just described, and the right
Yeah.
brain is the creative part. And
Right.
the question is, there's a balance, you know. The left brain
Yeah.
is working, but it's not leading the way. The right
It's not
brain
in
is,
the foreground.
yeah,
The left brain's in the background.
yeah. And so, yeah, you know, Larry Kuntz once told me, I asked him what he was practicing, and he said, you know, I'm practicing what I have to practice with joy. And
Mhm.
that's important because
Good.
whatever you practice, you're going to use. So
Yeah, no, that's right.
if you
That's
practice
good.
joy, then
Yeah.
when you get out into the world, you're going to
Yeah.
be, joy is part of it that you're going to
Yeah.
use, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I like
So,
that.
yeah, I know. It's beautiful, right?
Yeah. And
Yeah.
Larry Kuntz, another, he's like, for me, at the Lou Matthews level, just total
Oh, yeah.
sweetness and music coming out
Quality.
his ears and just there to share. And yeah, he's a beautiful cat.
Yeah, he is a beautiful guy. And
Mm.
he got it from his beautiful parents, too.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which is great. Yeah. You know, I was looking around on YouTube and I stumbled on you and uh, um, Julian Lage.
Oh, yeah. Hey,
It was
man.
that was a live gig, a live
Oh,
thing,
let
right?
me tell you. So here's what happened. So I was stumbling on around on YouTube, and I just found Julian playing something.
Yeah.
And I was a guitar player in high school, so and I still have my guitar from high school, and I love guitar. Um, and so I'm really picky about guitar players. Um, and Julian just blew me away what he was playing. I couldn't believe it. So I reached out to him, and he was going to be on faculty at the Stanford Jazz, whatever it's called, Institute. So I enrolled, and on the first day, I saw him in the hallway. I recognized him from YouTube. I said, "Hey, are you Julian?" "Yeah, I'm Dave Ross. I came here for one reason. I'll be here all week. The only thing I want to have happen is I want to play once with you. If I get to play with you, bass and guitar, I'll be happy." "Oh, okay, don't worry. We'll make it happen." So he gave me his cell number. He said, "Just text me each morning because we've got a real full, the faculty have a really full schedule." I said, "Okay." So it didn't work any day until finally the last day. And I got him in the morning. He said, "I've got a crazy day, but listen, I'm playing we're having a rehearsal with Charles Lloyd in the morning, and bring your bass to the auditorium, and right afterwards we'll play." I said, "Okay, great." So I go to this rehearsal, and I'm going to tell you this story because it really reflects the kind of person Julian is. Julian at the time was probably 27 or something like that. And they were rehearsing Charles Lloyd, and I can't remember who was in the band, but all big shots and all much older than Julian. And Charles's wife was his librarian, so she would put the sheet music out in everybody's seats. And I was so new to everything that I was like, ooh, what's it like when real musicians practice? I mean, this is going to be cool. I'll see a rehearsal. And so what they did is they had a concert that night. So they just looked at each piece of music one at a time. And Charles would say, is there anything about this particular tune that you want to run through? And somebody might say, oh, let's just do the intro, or let's do the outro, or let's do this. And so they did that. And uh, finally, they get to this one piece. And Charles says, okay, do you see anything about this one? And it's just complete quiet. And like everybody was nervous. And Charles, he's not quite from the Miles Davis Monk level, but I mean, he's like a premier artist, right? So everybody is deferential to him. He's also older than everybody. And so everybody's completely quiet. Finally, little Julian, who's like 27 years old with all these big dogs, goes, "Excuse me, Charles, we've already gone through that too, so we're good. We don't need to do it again." Oh, he said, "Okay, great." So afterwards, I get to play with Julian. The first question I asked him was, "So Julian, how did you have the guts?" Nobody in the group, everybody was embarrassed that Charles didn't realize you'd already done the tune. You were completely comfortable bringing it up, and you did it in the most non-threatening, comfortable way. Oh, he said, I started playing with Charles when I was 15.
Oh,
So, I've known, it's like, oh, for God's sake. So anyway, we played Autumn Leaves together. And afterwards, I said, and I'd heard some of Julian's original pieces at the faculty concerts during the week. So after we were finished, I said, Julian, your playing and your writing really remind me of a bass player. Have you ever heard of Steve Swallow? He says, oh, of course. He said, Steve Swallow is on an album with Jimmy Giuffre that changed my whole concept of jazz. I think Paul Bley might be on it. I said, "You got to be kidding!" I didn't even know about the album. I said, "Yeah." So I said to Julian, "So you should do a duet album with Steve Swallow. That would be so cool." Oh, he says, "Do you think he'd want to play a duet?" I said, "I got no idea, but you should do it." So I get back to LA and I look for a contact for Steve, and I can't find anything. But I find he and Carla Bley had a website they shared, and it was a really, just as you would expect, particularly from Carla, a very eccentric, idiosyncratic website. So I thought, well, then they must have worked with the webmaster to create this website because this is not a template website. So I contacted the webmaster. Do you have any contact information for Steve Swallow? Oh, sure. Because she thought I knew him, I guess. So I emailed Steve. Steve, you don't know me. I'm a bass player in LA. You're my favorite acoustic bass player. And I can sing you every note in your solo of General Mojo's Well Laid Plan from the Duster album of 1968. It's still in my head. I love your playing, blah, blah, blah. And he writes back, like within a few hours, you mean I've got a fan? Somebody who really likes my playing? That is so exciting. Thanks so much for writing. So I wrote back and I said, have you ever heard of Julian Lage? And he writes back, he goes, sure. He played a lot with Gary. We've never played together, but I know he's a great player. I said, would you have any interest in doing a duet album? And I get such a kick out of this. Well, do you think Julian would want to? I said, hell yeah, I just talked to him. He's all for it. So this is like this is above, where the clouds are in heaven? This is like above the clouds in heaven. So I said, well, maybe if you guys are up for it, I'll produce a duet album. Oh, sure, that sounds great. I said, oh my God, are you kidding? So I thought, well, as a producer, I've got to do something. So I emailed both of them and I said, I think it'll help us if we have a theme or something so we can start figuring out how to pick tunes and that kind of stuff. And this is going to sound really crazy, but I've been listening to who was that first American songwriter? Uh, he wrote The Swanee River and Jeannie with a Light Brown Hair, Stephen Foster. I said, I've been listening to Stephen Foster. He wrote a lot of novelty songs, particularly race songs, but he also wrote some incredibly beautiful songs like Jeannie with the Light Brown Hair. These incredible melodies, and nobody's ever done it in jazz. What do you think of doing a jazz album of Stephen Foster? And you both have fretted instruments. So it could be like banjo and guitar, except it's a bass, electric bass and guitar. You know? And Steve wrote back a really insightful, I can't remember if it was Steve or Julian, saying, Dave, you know, for the first time we get together, let's not impose anything. Let's just play and then figure it out from there. I said, okay, great. So we pick a date that they're both in New York because they're both, those days, Steve and Julian were just touring all the time, a lot in Europe. And so there were 3 days, this is like 2019 or something, 3 days they were both going to be in New York. So I fly back to New York. I'm reciting this because it's like one of the most exciting moments of my life, you know. And Julian has just finished teaching at a bluegrass workshop in like South Carolina. He flies to New York where his girlfriend is doing a gig with the milk carton boys or whatever they're called, the milk carton kids. And so he rents a car, he picks me up, and we're driving up to Woodstock together. I'm going to be in a car for 2 hours with Julian Lage. I can ask him anything I want. And I'm just like drooling. I'm just like talking and, oh my God, you know. And then, and Julian, that's how excited Julian is to meet Steve. So so Steve lives above Woodstock in this other little town. And I mean, you have to go up into the woods, off the street, onto dirt roads, and you finally get to this driveway. It's like so off the grid. And here is this log cabin. And that's where Steve and
Carla.
Carla live, you know. And like Julian and I are like hyperventilating. We like pull in and there's somebody out doing the gardening. And so we say, oh, we try to act, you know, casual. Oh, hi. We're here to see Steve Swallow. Oh, she said, just go in the door. He's waiting for you. So we open the door, goes right into the kitchen. And there's Steve sitting at the kitchen table. I mean, I had not seen Steve since Shelley's Manhole in 1969, where on the break, I went backstage and I said, oh, hi to Steve Swallow, because I had no interest in talking to Steve Swallow. I wanted to talk to Larry Coryell. And I let me play his guitar. And I was like, oh, but I remembered Steve. He had like, you know, crew cut, and he was this young kid, you know, he's in his 20s. And here he is now 80 something. And so the idea was we're going to play right away. We spent 3 hours sitting at the kitchen table, just talking about, I mean, Steve Swallow, his parents, his dad was a mailman in New Jersey. And his parents had this idea that if they got him into an Ivy League school, there'd be all these opportunities for him. So they put him into a kind of a Tony prep school to try to get that trajectory started. And guess who his roommate was? Ian Underwood, who already was a prodigy and crazy and knew everybody. You know, they're like 13 or 14. And so he turned Steve on to jazz. And Steve gets into Yale and is playing in a Dixieland band at Yale, Dixieland,
Yeah.
and loving it. And gets this call from I think Ian Underwood might have put him in touch with Paul Bley because Paul and Jimmy were looking for a bass player for this trio. So that's Paul's introduction to jazz is that trio album basically.
Huh. Wow.
And then the next gig, Ron Carter quits the Art Farmer Quintet with Jim Hall, and Steve gets the gig. I mean, he was playing to
The
Dixieland
next
Jazz like six
gig,
months
yeah.
ago, and now he's on this gig. And he's
Yeah.
just got such great ears and such a beautiful feel. You can hear all this stuff on YouTube, you know, you can listen to him play. It's
Yeah.
all such an original conception of the bass, and it's just beautiful. So anyway, we spent all those hours, and we did, I think, 3 sessions over 2 years. And then our plan was we were going to go to Europe. We were going to do gigs for like a month in Europe and then come back and do a couple gigs in New York and then do a CD, all the stuff. And COVID hit. And then Carla got sick. And yeah. So, but I'm still in touch with both of them. I got an email from Steve.
What
Uh,
about the sessions that you did? Were they recorded?
I recorded everything on my video camera. I've got
But
everything.
but not in the studio, right?
No, 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 nothing was recorded in the studio.
Yeah.
We did one gig at Smalls
Yeah.
uh, just to play once in front of people. And we ended up with a beautiful conception. So, oh, I forgot to tell you. So that very first thing, we go from the kitchen down to Steve's practice recording studio in the basement, and I'm like so excited. They're taking out their instruments, and Steve goes, "Hey, Dave, you know that idea you had about Stephen Foster, which I thought they had just blown off, That was a really interesting idea. So I've been corresponding with Julian, and what we're thinking of is we will look at this as American music, but it's not just Stephen Foster. It can be anything, including Ornette Coleman. But it's music to us seems uniquely, deeply American. And so they had, Bix Beiderbecke tunes, Ornette Coleman tunes, just all these great tunes. And it was so fun for me to watch them read through these challenging tunes together. Do they get uptight? Do they get nervous? And I was watching, and they're like really relaxed, and they felt no pressure to demonstrate to each other that they're good. They could devote all of their energy to being relaxed and to the music at hand. It
Yeah.
was like I was in heaven, man.
That's
Yeah. So
gorgeous.
so I
So,
just
okay, so I saw Emily with you and Julian. Was
yeah
that
yeah yeah
a live thing?
no. So Julian, this is during COVID. So Julian played Emily, and so I wrote him and said, "Hey Julian, I love that version of Emily. Is it okay if I play bass to it and post it?" He said, "Oh sure, no problem." So I just put my headphones on, and I just played along with it. It was one take, and I just played along with it. And I did good. I thought I was proud of what I did. And, it wasn't easy because um, I didn't have, I was just playing along to what I heard.
Right.
So I didn't know how many repeats there were or when he's going to end it or how he's going to end it or, I didn't know anything. So I was just listening and trying to play along with it. And I was just so proud of myself that I didn't screw it up and everything.
Can we listen a little?
Oh, are you kidding? That would be like a thrill.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to do that.
That is so flattering. Thank you for doing that. And here's Julian, and you'll know he'll play open chords. He just
Yeah. I'm
the
going to just
whole
I'm going to step away for 1 second.
okay, just all of music is accessible to him. He hears everything.
Nice, Dave.
Hey, man. That
Very nice. That was
was so
good.
sweet of you to play it and play it all the way through. That's just so nice.
That's nice.
Yeah. And it's funny, I can hear Steve Swallow influence on me. Um, yeah, I gotta send that to him because it'll make me feel proud. I can show him how he's influenced my playing,
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, now that I was thinking too, that's an example of what we were talking about before about, where some people would either be daunted
Yeah,
by trying to get them together or just not even, it wouldn't even be
yeah,
real.
right, right,
Like, what?
right. Yeah,
I wouldn't even think of that. It couldn't happen. I mean,
yeah,
yeah, it would be nice, but it's never going to happen. No, you didn't
yeah,
think
yeah,
that. You just were like,
yeah.
oh, yeah, this would be great. I think I'll just see where it goes.
Yeah. You know, people, people are people. We're all on this planet. It's a frightening, challenging, crazy experience to live your life. And so I just feel that whenever I ask somebody something, whether they're famous or not, um, you know, there'll just be a person back and we'll figure it
Yeah.
out. And I'll say something about Julian. I saw him play with his trio last year at Disney Hall. They were with the Bad Plus, and I assumed that the Bad Plus that Julian would be the opening act, but the Bad Plus was the opening act. I thought, "Whoa, Julian, man, you're doing good." So here we are at this big, beautiful hall, and he's got his Telecaster. He's got an amplifier with like a maybe a 8-inch, 10-inch speaker in it, and the bass player is a wonderful bass player, the drummer, and they filled Disney Hall, and it was really Julian. Jorge Roeder is the bass player. He's a beautiful person and a great bass player, but both he and the drummer are there. Julian is the one who's opening like one door after another. And so afterwards, I went to talk to him, and I realized, and I told him this. I said, something has changed in jazz and probably in the world because if it were 50 years ago, there would be a downbeat poll, and Julian would be the number one guitar player year after year. And guitar players everywhere would be aspiring to get his latest album. And they would be saying, well, is Julian as good as Miles Davis? That kind of stuff. And same with Jorge um, and none of that happens anymore. The whole used that word before, like universe, the whole universe. There used to be a universe of jazz artists. And if you were a jazz fan, every jazz artist had a place in this constellation and your favorites, and they're really amazing at this, blah, blah. And, and you would buy their albums, and it was just, and they were important people. And there were people in the firmament like Miles Davis or Thelonious Monk who, Charlie Parker, who had permanent positions in that firmament. Um, None of that exists anymore. So Julian, who in my opinion is one of the greatest musicians that's ever lived, forget about guitar player. I mean, um, and yet there are tons of jazz people who've never even heard of Julian. And so, I could say it's and I told Julian and Jorge this. I said, it's so crazy that you guys can be as good as you are and have to hustle gigs. I mean, the Disney Hall gig was great, but it's an exception. They're coming back this month, I think, and playing the Palace Theater. So it's Disney Hall. It's still a theater. It's still good, but they could easily be at the Lodge, or they could be.
Yeah.
So it's just interesting to me that in music, the music has changed so much. Well, another aspect of it is there's no more loyalty. It used to be if you love Miles Davis, you would want to hear all the Miles Davis albums.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't be like looking for another trumpet player. the next year because Miles is old. But now music is this constant turnover, particularly for young kids, of all this new music, you know. And so what has kind of dissipated is this uh,
Reverend.
structure, yeah, and reverence for people. Uh, yeah. So anyway, it's a shame, but Julian, oh, he's the sweetest, most down to earth, modest person. And yeah, and I feel so lucky that I've got his cell number, you know.
Right.
So cool. And Steve
Well,
Swall.
yeah, I mean, my friend Taylor Hatch, who's a guitarist, early on. Sorry, Taylor, I didn't get to any of your questions really, but yeah, he was thinking, are there things you find in the music industry at large that needs specific attention? What are your thoughts about the expansion of the LA jazz scene? Um,
Yeah, I mean,
and
I've got thoughts about all that. And I can say real quickly
okay,
that in the same light of what I just talked about,
yeah.
um, it seems that something, we could call it digital technology, um, has fundamentally changed uh, the way our society is functioning. It's hard to find any aspect of our society that has been untouched by it. And you know, and the music world is just bullseye. The distribution has changed. Uh, um, the gigs, jazz, just how jazz is thought of, how genres are thought of. I mean, you can be an aspiring musician or aspiring artist, say, never learn how to play an instrument, work out of your bedroom, using your laptop, get your music online, and and become. Here's another example. Just the other day, I read that there's a person who used AI to create a song catalog, create a band, create write songs for the band, have the band play all the songs. He created a whole catalog of music, put it on Spotify, and then, in an even more ingenious step, used AI to create listeners and ended up making $3 million in Spotify and other revenue, all AI without any human touching any part of the process. So, all I'm getting at is that when I think about the changes in music, like that person asked, I immediately shift my focus to just everything and trying to come to grips with it. It's just it's really challenging and disruptive and hard to understand and
Yeah, well,
continues to change.
yeah, I mean, for me, I don't think the creativity has changed. It's still the same creativity, still musicians playing with each other, different styles, different songs coming up, audiences liking it, but it's the business itself and how do you sustain yourself as a musician if
Sure.
what's going on is what's going on. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
we have to either
But
get super creative about that,
yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, or
But even the music itself has changed. So I know for jazz, it's, you know, what you talked about is very similar. It's gigs, it's playing together. But if you're a young person and you want to be an artist, a music artist, you can do it all by yourself. You can do it in your bedroom. And when you're thinking about music, you're not thinking like 50 years ago, what's my melody going to be? That question doesn't get asked. What's my melody going to be? It's what is the hook? What's going to make a hook? And so, and even harmony isn't really focused on. It's really just creating sonic sounds that are appealing and engaging. And, you know, so the whole process of conceiving what music is, how it's made, uh, I think has also been is in a process of fundamental change and continuing to change. Hasn't landed. It's just, yeah, I don't know what's going to go
But
next.
I don't think that's so much of the jazz world.
No, not in the jazz world. I agree. Yeah,
Yeah, the jazz world, I think people are really they're still coming from a very how can you not? Because jazz is always is about improvisation, basically.
right, right.
You know, I
But
mean,
the big challenge for jazz is that first of all, anybody can learn to improvise, but improvising is as much of an art as any other aspect of art, right? So you think of the people that you know, which is every jazz musician living in Los Angeles practically, and you had to ask yourself, which of those musicians, when they solo, really moves me? Something really happens when they solo.
yeah,
It's a very small number. Improvising beautifully, where you're competing in a traditional jazz song, you've got, you know, you play the chart, you got a melody, you got all this harmony. Your job as the improviser is to take that and add to it, make something even more wonderful out of it. There are not many improvisers that can do that. So, what does that result in? You've got a lot of young jazz players who are really adept at improvising. They can play fast, they can play through difficult changes. I went to Stanford Jazz thing twice. Not once did any instructor ever ask anybody, why did you play that? Like, what did you mean for me to feel? Feelings never even got mentioned. It was all about horn players in particular, how to navigate. Can you play giant steps? And can you play it fast? Can you play caravan? Can you play it fast? All that kind of junk. So all I'm getting at is that jazz has this big challenge. It went from the 50s, where it was still drawing from the songbook, moving into the late 50s, early 60s, where you started with Blue Note, getting a lot of original songs being written. Very few of them have lasted. Very few of them. Bobby Timmons wrote great songs, but there's one or two that have lasted. Clifford Brown, a just gifted songwriter, but there's a handful of songs. And most of the other guys, Freddie Hubbard, do you know any great Freddie Hubbard songs? I mean, so just because you're a great musician doesn't mean you're a great writer. So now you've got these bands, these jazz bands that play original material, and it's not particularly compelling material. And they're improvising on it, and their improvising isn't particularly compelling. And that doesn't speak. That's
I think
not
that's I think
encouraging.
that's youth more than anything. Like I was talking with
Yeah,
Bunny Brunel. Do you know who
yeah,
that is?
yeah, yeah,
Last
yeah.
week, and I was I hadn't really listened to Bunny for a long time,
Right,
and
right, right.
but I always was a fan. And then so
Yeah,
I we played some live video,
yeah,
and I was intrigued by his simplicity
yeah.
and space
Right,
to
right, right.
use in a
Yeah,
trio formation.
yeah,
We
yeah.
talked about that, and we talked about um, well, okay, another person comes to mind, Anthony Wilson, who
Yeah,
really truly is one of my favorite guitar players.
yeah, yeah,
And he's been doing this songwriting thing for
yeah.
a number of years now, singing and writing these songs. They're kind of from his father's heritage in
Hmm.
Memphis, that kind of almost Robert Johnson like kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah.
And I mean, I sat through a whole night at Sam First with a trio and what's his name on violin? I forget his name. And
Wow.
Anthony like didn't shred
Right,
at
right,
all.
right,
And
right.
every song for me was
Yeah,
like my
yeah.
own personal movie.
Were they originals of Anthony's?
Yes.
Wow.
And I just was
Cool.
totally blown away. Every song was like a new little movie. It was absolutely gorgeous.
How far, when was that? Remember roughly? I
Yeah,
gotta look for it.
it was Well, it was definitely this year.
Okay.
So
And was the
it's
band
with
under Anthony's
Miguel.
name?
It was with Miguel Atwood Ferguson on violin. It was at
Okay.
Sam First.
Yeah.
It was a trio and Miguel. And
And it's under
they,
Anthony's name, you think? It's
yeah,
Anthony's trio?
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Jay
Who played
Bellerose,
bass? Who played
drums.
bass on it, remember?
Um, might have been, um, is that it? Let's see. Could have been this bass player friend of Jay Bellerose, who I didn't really know. He's
Oh,
like
okay.
a producer, like for
Hmm.
more pop stuff, but like played like Larry Klein.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 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 yeah. Who's
I'm
that
pretty sure that
famed?
was it. And it was Josh
Yeah.
Nelson on piano.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Um,
It was
okay.
gorgeous.
Yeah, I'm going to try to find that because it's funny that Anthony's name comes up because I just emailed him yesterday for a gig in October because I was in a workshop, a Zoom workshop that he did on Friday, and he said, "Yeah, I'm just here. I live in downtown LA." And I thought,
Oh,
"Oh man, you live in downtown LA. You got to come play." So
he's
anyway, he hasn't
cool.
responded yet. Yeah, he's a sweet
And
guy.
and he's really great. His interview was one of my favorite interviews in
Mm,
all these years. Was very spiritually inclined and
yeah,
just he's
yeah,
very kind and
yeah,
he sees really good things,
yeah, yeah,
notices them in a reality,
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I feel like what you described is I mean, it's not totally, but I really feel like that's a youth kind of a
Mm-hmm.
thing. Like
Sure,
as you're coming up, you're playing a lot of notes, that's
sure, sure.
you just don't even usually, except for people like Julian,
Right,
you
right,
usually
right.
don't get that space is
Yeah,
not
I
nothing,
agree.
you know.
Yeah, I agree.
And I spoke to somebody else that I agreed with, as I'm getting older, and whomever else this was, I can't remember,
Yeah,
that the tempos, I actually like to slow down the tempos now more.
yeah. Oh,
You know,
I think this is another weird thing about jazz. Uh, Out of bebop, this virtuosity became really important, and part of that virtuosity was playing fast.
yeah,
And there's no question, it's exciting to
yeah,
watch jazz musicians who can really play well at that
yeah,
fast tempo. But the truth is, for me, I can't intake when that music is that fast. I am sampling it
yeah,
because I can't follow it. I just can't process it enough. And
yeah.
so I'm with you. I want to get my teeth into every song. So I'd rather slow it down so I can really hear and you know what I mean?
Soak it in.
Feel it. Yeah, soak it in. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Who recently have you heard anybody either on your gig or wherever that you just thought, oh yeah, that is delicious? I mean, Mary
Yeah.
Stallings, without a doubt, when she starts singing, that's the feeling I get immediately. The sound
So
of her voice, her
yeah,
phrasing, it's just
that
so,
gig, that gig with Mary, and if anybody wants to, I've got a video of the gig. It's not posted publicly, but I'm happy to share a link. Anybody listening that wants.
at the
She
Wilshire.
sang, yeah, back in July at the Wilshire Bell with Houston Person, and it was noteworthy for me because uh, Mary didn't sing during COVID at all, and she's 85, and you wonder if your voice is going to come back. And I've done 3 gigs over 3 years with her since COVID, and the first year, her voice, she was really working and praying when she was reaching for notes. The next year is a little bit better. This July, she was beautifully voiced. I mean, she doesn't have the range she did when she was young, but her voice was supple everywhere, and she just made a nest for every note. Oh, so that, yeah, that for me, I haven't ever gotten any higher than playing with Mary and Houston last July.
Yeah.
That was like,
I
I yeah,
I have to just say, in the beginning when you weren't here, I played Barbara Morrison, which of course
yeah, yeah,
Barbara
yeah.
divine, and I played Sally Kellerman, and Sally
Oh yeah,
Yeah, she was great.
Sally, when she
I don't know
graduated from Hollywood,
how old was she when she was singing with you? She was up there, right?
so when she graduated from Hollywood High School, she had a
Yeah,
contract, a jazz contract with Verve Records. People didn't, I mean, who the
yeah,
knows that?
right, right.
Um, and so you can hear it. Pitch is perfect,
Yeah,
style, she
yeah.
does it all. And Sally was probably um, in her late 70s when she was singing with us.
Yeah.
And she had lost her husband, who was, I think, 9 years younger than she, died of a heart attack at dinner. And they had two kids they'd adopted.
Right.
And she lost her daughter a month after she lost her husband. And that really knocked her dementia into high gear.
Yeah.
So I would call her son. He would dress her. I would call an Uber. Her
I
son
picked
would,
her up a few times
you
too.
picked her up sometimes, yeah. And then she would come down to the club and she was completely unself-conscious, completely comfortable, the hippest hip kitty that like ever
Totally.
made.
Yeah.
And I'd introduce her and she'd come up and and then Mark would start playing MASH, it was just like so sweet. And then she'd get up there and she'd look at the camera because we were streaming in those days. She'd go like, "Hi, is this all about me? Could you say some more? Oh my gosh. And what am I here for?" And then Mark would start playing. She had four songs that she did. And he would start playing one of them and she immediately would start humming the song. The lyrics would come back. She never missed a lyric. Now, her dementia got so bad that the last night she was there, she would sing on a stool.
Yeah.
Last night she was there, she was singing, and as she was singing a song, she started falling off the stool, really
Oh,
slow motion,
oh,
like molasses, kind of falling off this. And
oh.
so she kept singing. And when she finished the song, she was lying on the floor. And I laid down beside her and I said, "Sally, you're on the floor." She goes, "I know. How did that happen?" I said, "Really slowly." She said, "Oh." And so I got her up and I thought, I can't keep having her come down here. She's just, and then she got put into assisted living and I'd go out and visit her. I'd say, she's out in like Woodland Hills. And I go, "So Sally, how's it going? Let's go have lunch." She go, "It's great. Elliot Gould took me to lunch yesterday." Oh, Sally. She was, and she told great stories about, I mean,
She was
everybody.
definitely a hipster. Yeah, very
Marlon
cool.
Brando, Bill Evans. I mean,
Yeah,
her circle was deep.
yeah, lovely person, really lovely person.
She played a
Um,
little Sally Kellerman too.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I did a fun gig a few weeks ago that's worth mentioning. It was my first jazz festival, another thing on my bucket list I got to check off up at Lake Arrowhead called the Blue Jay Jazz Festival. And the way I was able to get the gig to happen is I pitched Chet Baker meets Ray Charles. So for Ray Charles, I had Ricky, I had Jeff Cut. Nolan wasn't available. He wasn't with Ray anyway. But so I got Jeff Kay on, who played with Ray for 19 years, and then Val Geeson, who was a Raylet. So they held up the Ray
Paul
Charles thing.
Kreiber.
No, uh, on drums, I had Judd Pillett, who
Oh,
helped
okay,
us get the gig because he lives up there.
right,
But and then I had John Prue
right.
on piano. Now, John, you mentioned, is there anybody listening? John Prue, I think, is an under-recognized artist. First of all, he is a great piano player,
Yeah, he is.
beautiful piano player, and a generous player. Never tries to show off, but
Uh-huh.
always delivers. And when he sings, he sounds like Chet Baker.
Yeah,
And I'm just telling you, to play "Let's Get Lost" or something like that with John singing is a pretty cool experience.
yeah.
Yeah. So we went back and forth, and just so you know, because you get a kick out of this, we ended the gig with "Hit the Road, Jack," with the band singing the refrain, "Hit the road, Jack," singing all that, and Val singing the Ray Charles part. So that was fun. And that's, by the way, that's posted if anybody wants to watch at my website, jazzsalon.org, you'll see a link that says like Blue Jay Jazz, view the Blue Jay Jazz concert or something. So that's free and you can view it. You'll get a kick out of it because it's all kinds of goofy. And John's daughter, Maya, who's 17
It's fabulous.
and remarkable artist already, Brazilian guitar player, singer. They sing Gingy together.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
And then
And she's
this
such a
young,
lovely girl too.
do you remember this girl? Remember when you came and did the Hal David, Burt Bacharach gig as a
Yeah,
fundraiser for this young girl who had cancer?
yeah,
There's a 7-year-old girl, no
Julia.
hair,
Yep,
Julia.
yep.
I don't know if you're aware of this, but they got her into an experimental program at Sloan Kettering, and she's cured. She's been in remission for 7 years.
Wow.
So I had her come up. She's 15. She's beautiful, and she sang that Charles Trenet song that I love that Barbara used to sing. Um, I'll give you that shelter from the storm of boo doo doo boo da
Yeah.
doo da 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 da. She sang that, and she's got a remarkable. So as a singer, I wish you'd if you look over that link somewhere in the middle, you'll hear Julia and
Oh,
Maya
good.
both sing. They're both
Yeah, because I have to hear. I haven't heard Julia in years since she was.
yeah. You will start. Oh, I want you to listen to it because first of all, it brings me tears because here's a girl who had terminal brain cancer. She was
Yeah,
going to die, and she faced that with a no hair and the biggest smile and clear eyes, um, and just got lucky. And that experimental medication worked.
yeah.
And here she is, 8 years later, just as beautiful a human being. You'll get such a kick out of it because you knew her when. And
Yeah, yeah, that's great. I will. Well, I'm going to go now because I have to get ready and go down to Campus Jack's
oh yeah, 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 yeah,
for the
yeah.
Lou Matthews tribute. Um, I'm going a little early. I'm meeting Mike Campbell down there for dinner.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Have fun.
Um,
And I'll be thinking of Lou. I'll look for. Hopefully, there's a stream.
I hope so too. Thank you for being on, Dave
Yeah.
Ross.
And I gave you the address for the check and everything. You know all about that. Did my people call your people?
Yeah,
Hey,
they,
Kathy,
yeah.
I would do anything for you. And this was um, made me feel important. So it was a privilege in that way. And, to be recognized and focused on for a couple hours. And you played that cool thing with Julian, all of it. It's a treasure for me. I love it. I love you.
I love you too. By the way, Leslie said, "What a nourishing afternoon. Thank you for filling me up."
Hey, Zerla, you're numero uno on the fastball.
Just ladies and gentlemen, next Monday, I'm only doing Mondays nowadays. Next, by the way, Dave, you were 590.
Oh, wow. I got to write that down. I'm going to have a tattoo made. Whoa.
Well, so next week is a really great singer. I mean, drummer. I don't know if you know her, Tata Batera.
No, I've never heard of her.
She's Brazilian, and she's really good. And she's actually going to come over because she preferred to be with
Cool.
me in person. So
Yeah,
it
yeah.
should be really fun next Monday.
Cool.
Yeah, pretty neat.
You're
Uh,
very neat.
yeah. So I guess that's it.
Yeah. Well, can we do it again another time? I thought so
Yeah.
much
We
fun.
didn't even talk about your family's past, which I mean, I find
Right.
highly
Yeah.
interesting.
Did I tell you? So last night at the gig, because my grandfather was a silent screen actor, uh, Eddie Cantor's granddaughter. Did I tell you this
Yeah.
already? I did. Yeah.
Yes.
I was like, oh my God, we're like grandchildren of famous
I
people.
know. I know. I was telling Lee that I knew several other people with,
Yeah.
people out of the Hollywood, like Gary Bavona. His father was Gus Bavona, who was basically the alto player for Hollywood.
Oh
And
wow.
Gus's, I thought it was Gus's sister, but I think I was a little confused. Anyway, I thought Gus's sister was a big band singer, but it might have been his wife, and her
Yeah.
brother or something like that was a name I can't remember, but he was the writer of, um, oh my God. Okay, so I have to go look for this for a minute,
Yeah.
because
Okay.
I just want to say this.
And while you're looking for that, last night Carrie Peck came and read poetry, and he's Gregory
I,
Peck's son.
I
So
mentioned Carrie
we're like
too. Yeah,
pretty glamorous people.
yeah, I think so. So
Yeah.
Gus Pavona, yeah. So he was super famous, and uh, he married. Okay, so his wife was Ruth Robin, sister of Leo Robin. Do you know that
Oh,
name?
wow.
He
Publisher? Or,
Well,
no.
he wrote Thanks for the Memory,
Oh
and
my
he wrote
God.
with Julie Stein, he wrote Diamonds Are a Girl's Best Friend.
Huh.
So, I mean,
Wow.
you know, thanks for the memory.
Yeah.
And
Very
anyway,
cool.
like Gary would say that growing up, I don't know if you experienced this too, because you have an interesting history, but growing up, that all kinds of people were coming over to the house. That was it. It was a
Yeah.
musician's gang. It was top level musicians and writers, and that was
Yeah.
what he grew up around.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
I mean, I can remember when I came home from school and my mom was working on Days of Wine and Roses, and Lee Remick was sitting at our kitchen table. And I was probably 12. And I don't remember being really sexually aware yet, but I
Yeah,
looked at Lee Remick and I felt like I was looking at like a movie star. You know,
yeah,
she had simple clothes on, like jeans and a shirt, and she was so radiant. Like, and Rock Hudson coming over, and I had all that stuff happening. Crazy,
yeah. We'll have to talk.
fun.
We'll
Yeah,
talk about
part
that
two,
stuff. Yeah, part two.
son of Dave Ross, or whatever.
Thanks, Dave.
Okay, thanks, Kath. Thanks everybody for watching, and stay tuned for part two.
Love you, man.